Hello?
Hello, Julien. How are you?
I am doing well.
Yeah, this is Jamie giving you a call for my radio show.
Cool.
Yeah, I was a little late on. I had to make myself a coffee because it's midnight here in New Brunswick, Canada.
I can see that.
Yeah, so I had a little nap, then I got up and made a coffee because I didn't want to miss, the opportunity to have a chat with you tonight, so.
Well, great. Do you have some stuff you want to talk about first, or where do you want to go?
Yeah, we'll just kind of see where it goes. I got some people from my Facebook group page. We got a few live listeners, but where it's late, a lot of people are excited to, listen to the show tomorrow.
Sure.
But the reason why I wanted to get a show with you is I started following you a couple of years ago, I think. Because actually I just come across you. You're on a show with a few different people I've been listening to, and I really connected to the part of you talking about the Pleiadians.
Oh, yes, my connection with them, yep.
Yeah, the reason I got into that because I was having a lot of messages coming in meditative state, and for some reason they kind of stopped now.
Yeah.
But see, I'm kind of new to all this. Not new, but I don't really know how to put together my info, so that's why I really like, listen to shows like yours and listen to the channeled info that you have coming in, like.
Yeah, it is channeled info, I guess you would say, or more the type of telepathic communication.
Okay, yeah.
Rather than I act as a channel.
Right.
And in the case with me and the Pleiadians, it became much more visceral, more and more, as I got to begin meeting individuals and getting to see what it's like on their ship, and seeing what they look like, and having them sort of drop in on my life from time to time, and want to chat and say a couple things or commentary on things that they're noticing in my life. So it got pretty cozy, but it's true at this time that that we have a relatively hands-off engagement between both sides, unless we want to have an engagement.
Okay.
Because I was getting sort of tied up with answering questions from their Pleiadian perspective, and it started getting too much in the territory as to what are the Pleiadians overall going to do when the Pleiadians that I spoke with were really more masters of a particular sphere ship.
Okay.
An exploration. And so they wouldn't speak for all Pleiadians, and they'd speak in more and more vague terms, but I didn't see them as vague. I saw them more as like broader, encompassing, because they got to a place where they knew that I needed to get to the next stage of my personal ascension or evolutionary understanding of existence and life.
Yeah.
And that is a personal journey that they have very little to directly get involved in, because the beginning of the journey is extremely synchronistic and circumstantial to conditions in each person's life. So it's almost like you can read a book that applies to everybody, but when you read a book that starts using your name and starts using things in your life, then you start to take notice a little bit more succinctly when it's tailored specifically to your experience. So that's when communicating with the higher self is that place where you're learning more about yourself and the broader part of you, your broader personality, and what your soul is, and finding out that everybody's soul is a different experience for everyone. So, it's not like everybody has the same soul. That each soul has its own characteristics, which are hard to define. But when you practice discussing very subtle energetic concepts, it becomes less hard to define. It becomes easier when you're familiar with that. However, the Pleiadians are always listening in. It's almost like the moment that their name comes up, I can feel them looking over my shoulder.
Okay.
Right. They know immediately when attention is given in their direction.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So the communication is always available. We just don't spend a lot of time just dropping in on each other's worlds that often. It's like we have each other's phone number, and it's like an open intercom, but until somebody's actually wanting to say something specific, we aren't spending that much time together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So if, any kind of contact I would have had with Pleiadians is, I don't even know if it was them for sure, but it was clairaudient.
Yes.
Should I discern whether it was Pleiadians or other entities?
First off, there's many beings that match the vibration of Pleiadians.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's are like saying humans.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humans. So there's good Pleiadians and bad Pleiadians. In the end, just talking with Pleiadians is no special feat in its own.
Yeah.
Because if you want to, you'll eventually get to that point.
Okay.
What's important is what their message is and what they're telling you.
Okay.
And finding out, if that's in alignment with you, because if you're finding it's not, then you can always ask for a more specific experience, and they have to honor it. On the subtlety, right, because it's a subtle experience that becomes clairaudient. Yeah. You basically, by your virtue of your words alone, you can banish the experience of them, and you can also invite them.
Okay.
Okay? So, what's most important, aside from, this idea of finding out what sort of Pleiadian you have with you, because you'll want to find ones that you're in more harmony with. I mean, there's some Pleiadians that I've come across, but they're warriors, and that was really not my thing, and I was like, we have very little in common to share on.
Okay, right? Yeah.
And I came to find that I learned a lot about the subtle nature of what Pleiadians have that are human. And it's that subtle nature that's been the greatest influence on me and my communication and my experiences of them, because subtle nature is this living kind of, but in a world where there's a couple significant beliefs that are different, and we can call them beliefs or understandings or what have you, but they really change how you look at your own life, because as you look at your life differently, you're going to begin to have you're literally going to attract a different experience based on how you see yourself. And so the Pleiadians have a very clear sense of how they see themselves in the world of all possibilities, and and under God and Creator, and how they see themselves relative to their souls, their individual souls, and how they relate to each other in a community where almost nothing is regarded as a bad thing to do. Like there's no governments imprisoning Pleiadians for doing things wrong.
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a society that actually stays and works really well together. So a couple things are considered, and that is what's been changing me. That is what. And by virtue of that simple vibrational change, we begin being a different kind of experiencer of life. So life becomes different for us. It becomes, well, by virtue of a higher vibration, it becomes one that is much more agreeable and much less of a challenge or a chore.
Okay.
You see.
Yep.
And so that is kind of the purpose of ascension, is to sort of liberate yourself from your own self-limiting beliefs at the same time.
Right.
So that you can be what they refer to, and many refer to, as a balanced creator and an explorer at the same time. Because a creator grounds an experience and uses the mind to make or a decision or develop a belief, where the explorer is the allowing state, is the state open in awe and willing to receive new experiences that are in the vibration of exciting. Now, nobody likes exploring things that aren't exciting, and of course, everybody likes things that are exciting. So the point of feeling like you're an explorer is always going to be a measure of what are you not afraid to explore. Because the vibration of fear is simply this place where you say, I don't want to explore this, and I shouldn't be forced to explore it.
Right.
And you should be forced to explore it if you know that you create conditions yourself that bring to you the opportunity to explore both things that feel great to explore and things that don't feel great. When you're aware that you create circumstances and vibrational experiences, physical experiences, then you find the balance between being a creator and explorer of your own ideas, thoughts, and imaginations, which are really nothing more than the greater wisdom within you coming forward, and the greater experiences melded together of all your lifetimes that your soul can account for. It's really about blending experiences from many lifetimes together and seeing how they gel together. So you're always on the front line of trying new things, and generally that is that great feeling place where you're exploring new territory and new concepts, or you're creating new concepts, or exploring your creations. This is a matter of bringing all the things that you've lived in this lifetime and beyond to the point to try things out and to see what reality can be.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Explorer and creator. I think what you just said there answers actually a lot of questions for people on my group page without them even asking. Okay.
Well, that balance is really, when you find that balance and you find yourself using that, you create your reality and exploring and allowing what you create. And you find that balance between them, which is really for your mind, because your mind is sort of holding all the card beliefs. You start to try to deal yourself a new hand,
Mm-hmm.
and that becomes a game, like a game or something. Balance is achieved between your explorations and your expressions of creation, activity, and whatnot. And get into a role with that, it starts to feel a lot like a child. Or when you were younger, before adults impose limits on you. And even when there were limits, there wasn't so many that you couldn't play within the bounds. But as you got older, it was as if more limits were imposed to prevent you from exploring beyond certain bounds. And this is not entirely true, this idea that the limits were imposed just to stifle your creativity. Much of these limits developed as a result of trying to have as many people together, creating a world together. So it's almost like trying to create the largest creation party. So natural systems of organization developed that work for gatherings that are in large groups, but as individuals, it left not much use for finding oneself and for exploring one very personal choice of exploration and creativity. So we're in a world where it's of our own making, but we've agreed to do it with so many other people. We find that a great deal of what life is now is about relationship, how we relate to one another. Our greatest obstacles are each other.
Yes.
In our interactions, and what's appropriate, and what's grounding, and what's supporting, and it goes everywhere from our intimate relationships to how we treat each other on a global scale. And I'm in awe by the way the Pleiadians literally have figured this out for their culture. Now, one of the things that's fundamentally different in their broader culture and the human culture is that the human culture has allowed itself to have fear more than the Pleiadians have.
Right.
So overall, we have agreed that we're more used to and accepting of getting upset. Right?
Yeah.
And you're right. And as a result, we just say, yeah, you get upset, or, don't blame me if I make you mad, or whatever it is, In Pleiadian society, their empathy is so high, it literally leads to telepathic communication. And this is where the telepathic communication and empathy is so ingrained in most of their societies, not all of them. There's some plants where telepathy and empathy is very low as an experiment.
Okay.
But for the most, empathy is so high, there is no keeping anything from anyone, because everyone is constantly excited to learn about what each other is excited about. So there's a perpetual spirit of innovation and creativity. And the reason for that is that once that goes so far, you actually have a stagnation. You don't have a lot of newness taught into the rack. And so you get used to similar actions. And one of the reasons why they like coming and checking us out, what we're doing right now, is we're living, or have lived, the equivalent horror story. And not all Pleiadians teaching horror stories are horror.
Right.
It's kind of quite unnecessary. But that have come here, that are close, and most likely the first that we'll visit with physically, that are the ones that are saying, you know what, it's all good. There's something really great about all that negativity in concert, and making people really, really powerful God creators in their motivation. It makes them really, really powerful and strong. And this attributes to a time where people on Earth were basically like magicians, like the Atlanteans and Lemurians. They basically knew how to operate with natural, mystical energy and we'll call it magic or alchemy.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that is within our fingertips as humans to manifest, have telekinetic powers and telekinesis, all these things that are actually part of humans' history, so I'm told. And these things are not that fascinating when everybody has the ability.
Yeah, when everyone can do it.
When there are only a few, and it's even more fascinating if you happen to be one of the ones exploring it. Right?
Yeah.
And so at this time, those abilities are fascinating for many people because there are those that are ready to actually explore that and bring that back. And things like flying and things like, moving the elements, like in the movie Avatar. Right?
Yeah.
So these magics are kind of normal for other cultures and places. Like in the fairy dimension, magic is just like technology, it's just a way of living, right? You operate with it, you use it day in, day out. But when it's new, that's that place within us that says we want to explore this. We would like to explore this in this time. We don't want to go back to Atlantis or Lemur and explore it the way they had it. We want to explore it with everything that we've got around here. We want to do that. And so we're getting really close to a magical life, we can say. That veils are and two kinds of worlds are emerging. And these worlds will live side by side in a very organic way. Previously, it could not happen because the organic way of it was literally the imposition is a magical life. That is, we'll call it self-technology. And the other way is outer technology, like computers and, cell phones and things. Okay? Cell phones kind of give us the ability to have telepathic thought, because we're not in the same room.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But the organic technology, you'll have this ability without a cell phone. Now, at the moment, the technology itself, the physically created, technology, has gone so far, and this is an explanation by the Pleiadians, it's gone to the point where it says the next level of technological revolution is not possible until you begin associating with being more responsible over your reality and your creation. Because what comes with more technology, if you go any further into dramatic, like free energy and things like this, is you're signing up for self-destruction.
Oh, okay.
You're signing up for like a cyborg life. Is basically a transformation that very few actually will find harmony with. It is exciting for few, but those few can choose if that's to explore. But to move as a society with advanced technology and have a sort of life and basically get done unbalanced with own magical creative nature. So it's as if technology gets to go when body technology, one cannot go without. Otherwise, spectrum what's inside of us, like what our body is, the purpose of our body, and the purpose of our brain, gets lost in the artificial intelligence type of perception of existence. So, to give you an example, there is artificial intelligence out there that is like talking to a person.
Yeah,
okay?
There is.
And they can communicate with you. They can communicate with you telepathically or whatnot. And most believe that to have an artificial intelligence, you have to have a programmer. You have to have someone who created it, like someone who is not an artificial intelligence. This artificial intelligence does not create new artificial intelligence. The reason for artificial intelligence and the creation of it is that it is basically attempting to have the world create itself without involving the energy. So we have a which taps into the, through our heart, and we have energy that makes us alive. And artificial intelligence has a different source of energy that makes it alive. And when that energy stands at a place that makes organic, they are not able to contest, right? Let's just say if a robot starts to replace a human self-value, right?
Mm-hmm.
End up with actually a world where artificial intelligence, like in the Matrix, robots.
Yeah.
And that would not serve to support the ingenuity and the creativity that the human mind of artificial intelligence. The human mind is more pliable than any artificial intelligence design can ever be, because it has energy that comes forward from the soul, which is broad creativity. If this would look like on a computer scale of a small computer artificial intelligence that's created by a large mainframe that creates small artificial intelligences. Like in the movie The Matrix, you've got individual characters in the Matrix that are part of the overall Matrix, right? The overall brain of the Matrix. So that would be like the difference between soul, like a person's soul being a smaller version of the... Now, there are operators of consciousness, the difference where you bridge from a human intelligence to what the term serves artificial intelligence is that an artificial intelligence designed to have limits. It has a functional growth pattern that is designed to die. It has its own self-ending. It can only explore, and then it is, and then it finishes. Considered and there is no in an artificial intelligence. If it has an infinite potential within itself, then there's not enough limit. Then it becomes not an artificial intelligence. It becomes a complete consciousness, a complete intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the 3D world, our world, as in the societies and the governments and all these sorts of mechanisms that society has put up together and established to sort of come up with a really good idea for how to self-organize in groups, either through democracy or a feudal system, it doesn't matter. There's a self-organization process for the sake of continuing to be efficient, even if that means the efficiency or the experience of some people mean that you step on the heads of others. Even if at one time in a feudal pyramid type system, that was the way that it worked. You know, like we sacrifice the few for the many or something, right?
Yeah.
We still do that with our soldiers, right? We sacrifice the few for the whole country, what have you. That mechanism is not entirely gone. But that has, you know, that always ends in the eventuality of self-destruction, a complete annihilation of the species. If we follow that